Hey guys, I am so excited about this episode of True Crime and Whatnot as we cover true events that inspired some of Hollywood's most popular horror films. So with that, let's just dive right into probably the most popular or well known, which is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of many films loosely based on the true events surrounding serial killer Ed Gein. Now, with Ed Gein, I use the term serial killer loosely because they only proved that he killed 2 people, and typically you're not considered a serial killer unless you've killed 3 or more in separate incidences. So if you aren't familiar with the crimes of Ed Gein, you soon will be. At 9 a.m. on November 16th, 1957, Bernice Worden went missing from her hardware store in Plainfield, Wisconsin. Her son, who was a sheriff's deputy, went into the store around 5 p.m. Once there, he discovered the cash register was open and there were blood stains on the floor. The last receipt that was written was made out to Ed Gein. The reason I say the last receipt that was written is because this was the 50s, so they still wrote out most receipts at that time. They weren't printed out like we're used to getting now. Ed was soon arrested that very same evening at the local grocery store. The police then began a search of the Gein family farm. In a shed, before they even went into the home itself, they found the decapitated body of Bernice Worden. She had also been shot with a .22 caliber rifle and had been mutilated after death. Inside the home, they found a plethora of human remains, such as skulls on his bedposts and a wastebasket made of skin and leggings. Yes, I said leggings, made of human skin. And that's just a few of the things they found. Honestly, if you really want to know what they found there is a full list on Wikipedia. And for those of you that don't enjoy the gross side of the crime, this is disgusting, so just trust me and don't look it up, because it's long. There's I think there's 30 items that they actually found. I'm not going to go into detail about them, and I'm not going to go into detail about the crime scenes themselves, because that's not necessarily what we're looking at in today's episode anyway. Just know it was gross. During his interrogation, Ed Gein admitted to stealing from 9 graves and even showed the police which ones. He also said he robbed the graves while in a daze and sometimes he would come to during the digging. He would then cover the grave back up and go home empty-handed. He also denied ever having sex with the dead bodies, claiming they just smelled too bad. He also admitted to shooting tavern owner. A tavern is an upscale bar, for those of you that may be unfamiliar with the term. Mary Hogan. He was also suspected of several other unsolved cases, although it could never be proven. Ed was arraigned on one count of first-degree murder on November 21st, 1957. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and found mentally incompetent to stand trial. He was sent to Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, which is now the Dodge Correctional Institute. In 1968, after a very long 11 years, it was determined he was now able to stand trial. His trial began on November 7th, 1968, and lasted a week. His defense opted out of a trial by jury, so the judge found him guilty of murder on November 14th. However, during a second trial, that same judge deemed him not guilty by reason of insanity and sentenced him to life in the mental hospital. He died at the Mendota Mental Health Institute due to respiratory failure secondary to lung cancer on July 26, 1984, at the age of 77. In the year 2000, his headstone was stolen. It was recovered in 2001 near Seattle, Washington. It is now in safekeeping with the local sheriff's department, meaning the grave site itself is unmarked. However, it is not unknown Ed is buried between his parents and his brother. The Exorcist. The Exorcist was based in part on a novel written by William Peter Blatty, who based the book on apparent true events. At some point in the late 1970s, a family in Maryland had a teenage boy who started experiencing different issues regarding his behavior and had scratches, and his mattress was moving on its own. And they say teenage boy, but the records that I found were for a 13-year-old boy. So he was a fresh teenager. During his first exorcism, which was performed by a priest from the Catholic Church, he tore a spring from his mattress and slashed the priest across the shoulders, effectively ending the ritual. In March 1949, 2 new priests and their assistants from the Exorcist Church, that's the name of it, witnessed the same behaviors, as well as hearing him screaming and yelling in low guttural tones. He would also react negatively to holy objects. By March 20th, he was admitted to Alexian Brothers Hospital in St. Louis after lashing out at the priests during one of the exorcisms. On April 18th, the day after Easter, he started having what appeared to be seizures. The priests took this opportunity to place holy items over his body and began the exorcism. After 7 minutes, the boy simply stated, "He's gone." After that, he went on to live a very normal life, supposedly. Now, at the beginning, I said at some point in the late 1970s. That's a typo on my fault. Yeah, it's the late 1940s. I'm sorry. The hospital room where the exorcism was performed was sealed up until 1978, when the entire hospital was demolished. The family's home in Maryland was also demolished. The Blob. The Blob was based on a real-life police report from September 26, 1950, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. According to the report, 2 officers on patrol saw an object fall from the sky. They then found a glowing ooze hanging from a telephone pole. As they watched the ooze, they realized it was crawling away. As they were in hot pursuit, it crawled to a field. While there, one of the officers got a little too curious and stuck his hand inside the ooze, effectively causing it to fall apart, leaving absolutely no trace that it ever existed. A Nightmare on Elm Street. In the 1970s, a family escaped the killing fields of Cambodia with their young son. After finding refuge in the U.S., the boy started having disturbing nightmares of someone chasing him. The terrors were so bad, they kept him from falling asleep for days. Eventually, the poor child did fall asleep, only to wake his parents in the middle of the night by screaming. By the time they got to him, he was dead. He died in the middle of a terrifying nightmare. There were other cases, very similar in nature, that involved other men from parts of Asia that sought refuge in the U.S., only to die later while they slept. It would later be named Asian Death Syndrome. Freddy Krueger was also named after Wes Craven's childhood bully, Fred Krueger. I honestly did not know about A Nightmare on Elm Street being loosely based on true events. Also, let it be known, I've never seen any of these movies. Y'all believe me when I say this. I can look at crime scene photos and autopsy reports and the photos from those. I can watch some autopsies while I eat, and I can take notes. I can do that all day. You put a horror film on, I'm out. I can't watch them. They mess with my anxiety. They make me paranoid, which is probably the point of them, but I don't need any help. So I don't watch those. I just don't. They're disturbing enough knowing that they're real. And then when you add the real into all of that, and you make it into a horror film, and you put some of these are our worst nightmares, right? Right? So it's like, why would you want to watch that on a screen? So I have a lot of issues with that. Now, the movie Scream is supposedly also loosely based off of true events. I can honestly say that is probably one of my favorite horror films, because I don't really consider it a horror film. It's more of a suspense film. And I feel the same way about The Sixth Sense. Although I haven't seen The Sixth Sense since it came out. I have an overactive imagination as it is. I don't need help, people. I really don't. But again, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of True Crime and Whatnot. I want to throw out there that the podcast has hit over 700 plays to date. We're only 4 months in, guys. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, stay true and whatnot. See you soon.